James Cameron recently had an interview with Fandango where he spoke about Avatar: Fire and Ash, essentially breaking down the title a little bit, giving us some details on what we can expect. And in this video I will talk about certain segments, and at the end of the video I also want to talk about the logo and a few things that I noticed which I initially didn't see upon its announcement. Avatar Theory here, hope you're doing well and having a fantastic day. And as I said, there was an interview with James Cameron on Fandango which can be found on their Instagram page, and it's only about a minute long. I'm sure the full interview will be released at some point, hopefully, but this minute-long interview does give us a few details about Fire and Ash.
Well, if you think about what is fire, fire can represent hatred, violence, trauma,
Power.
possible misuse of power.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thematic stuff.
So from that first segment, Cameron says that fire can represent hatred, violence, trauma, power, the misuse of power. And it's interesting that Zoe Saldana mentioned power. Maybe we will see a side of Neytiri, which we haven't really seen before, because we know, of course, she lost her eldest son in the Way of Water. So the trauma of that will certainly affect not only her, but the Sully family as well. But the hate and violence that Cameron refers to makes me wonder the origin of this Ash clan and how they connect to the world of Pandora. The hate can also refer to the hatred Quaritch has for Jake, and how he could see this Ash clan as an opportunity to misuse their power to his advantage. This, of course, all is just speculation.
What does Ash represent? In my mind, in this film, it represents the aftermath of all of that energy, which is grief and having to live with what you've done. As I told, the audience today, 14,000 of my closest friends, this film goes much deeper on our characters and deep emotional consequences for them that threatens their relationships with each other, tests their bonds.
Of course, where there's fire, there's ash. So when Cameron says grief, it immediately makes me think of the loss the Sully family endured during the Way of Water and how that will affect them going forward. But also maybe, and again, this is just speculation and theorizing, maybe Quaritch aligns himself with this new Ash clan, misusing their power, and then realizing that this clan is just pure hatred and pure evil. Whereas, that whole movie trope that we've seen before where the bad guy is like, what have I done? Maybe Quaritch gets to that point and then realizes that he's gone too far, realizing that this clan, their values and goals does not align with him, perhaps at a point where they put Spider in danger, and then you get some sort of turning point for Quaritch. I'm not saying a redemption arc, but just some sort of point where he essentially has to put his differences aside for a moment to fight this Ash clan alongside Jake in order for both of them to survive.
And that's why I say, I think the movie is simultaneously unexpected based on what you think you've seen 6 hours into the Avatar saga so far between the first film and the second film, and it will also be what you crave. I think what you crave as an audience is not just more beautiful imagery. We have that, of course we have that. We have an amazing, detailed, rich world and the imaginations of a lot of great artists that go into it. By this point, I believe we care about the journey of these people.
Now, I have no doubt that despite Fire and Ash will focus on a volcanic dark biome, it will certainly be a stunning and beautiful location designed by the talented and incredible artists and people that work at Lightstorm. And I'm definitely excited about what new creatures we'll see from these biomes. But Cameron speaking about consequences, emotional consequences for these characters, again gives me the picture in my head where Quaritch teams up with the Ash clan, tries to take out Jake, and as a result puts Spider in danger, possibly in a near-death situation where there's emotional consequences not only for Jake but for Quaritch as well as he grows closer with Spider. Now, Cameron does essentially say it will be the movie the audience craves but that they don't expect, and that is an interesting statement because we all crave more action, more emotional consequences, more character development. So I do think the action set pieces in this movie is going to be much bigger than The Way of Water, and I have a small feeling that this movie will be much more emotional than The Way of Water. Do I think that a main character or one of the main characters in the movie will die? Possibly, maybe even more than one, but I will leave that speculation and theorizing for another video. as I said, this interview is only about a minute long, so hopefully soon there will be a full interview which will give us much more information on Avatar Fire and Ash. Now, as for the logo itself, of course, looking at it, you have the blue Avatar Fire and Ash text in the front, and at the back you have the Avatar A logo, which almost looks like lava that's dripping at the bottom, the way they made this logo to stand out. But one thing, if you look very closely, if you zoom into the background, you can see that it looks like there are scratches on what seems to be some sort of metal surface. It doesn't look like rock texture, it doesn't look like ground or anything else, it just looks like scratches on metal texture, which makes me wonder, what could this imply? Because if you look at the logo for Avatar The Way of Water, of course the background looks like, well, water, and the reflection or the refraction in water as the light shines through it, which makes sense considering most of the movie took place in water. So going back to Fire and Ash, these scratches, I don't know, maybe it's the scratches from Varang. I mean, one of my breakdown videos of the concept art, you could see that Varang had these sharp claws or these sharp nails at the end of her fingers, and also those strings around her neck, which I theorized could be kurus cut off from Na'vi, perhaps her followers, cutting off their kurus, giving it to her. At the end of those strings, you can see what looks like blades as well. I mean, one thing that this also reminds me of is somebody that's being put in a box trying to escape, trying to claw their way out essentially. And it would be interesting if at some point, and again, this is just a theory, if the RDA captured a Na'vi, did tests and research on this specific Na'vi, where they tried to escape, tried to scratch and claw their way out, and eventually escaped. I mean, that would also make for an interesting story if essentially the origin of Varang was that she was captured by the RDA, tortured and tested on, thus making her completely insane, where she eventually escaped and formed her own clan, and during that whole torture segment she lost faith in Awa, thus forming her own religion of sorts, and that would make her backstory kinda sad, making you almost feel sorry for her, almost kind of the path that Sméagol and Gollum went through. You know, Sméagol was this kind, caring person, and due to the One Ring, he got corrupted and essentially became Gollum. But right now, we don't know anything about the Ash clan, we don't know anything about Varang. This is all just speculating and theorizing on simply scratches behind the logo. It could actually mean nothing, it could just be a nice looking backdrop to the title. But what do you think about that theory, and what do you think about the whole thing that James Cameron said in that interview segment? Let me know in the comments below, and for more Avatar content, have a look at the rest of my channel. Until next time, have a fantastic day and stay safe.